Okay, so we are going to continue factoring, so which is the reverse of FOIL. So what we're going to do this time in this section, now we are going to have trinomials. So this looks like standard form, x squared plus bx plus c. 4.2 and 4.3 are the same thing. They are where this value here, the first value in standard form is 1. And then tomorrow morning we'll do what happens when it's not equal to 1. Okay? So when you expand, that means FOIL. So like I said in 4.1, you can expand or use FOIL in every single kind of factoring to check your answer. So you can expand, and then factoring is the reverse. So when we factor, then we'll use expand as our check. So you have, when you do FOIL, you do first, so x times x, which is x squared, then outer, x times 3x, 3 is 3x, inner, 2 times x, which is 2x, and then last, 2 times 3, which is 6. So if you do it in that order, then your answer will be in standard form. You just have to collect the two terms in the middle. So x squared plus 5x plus 6. So it's better form if you do it in the FOIL way, first outside, inside, last, so that your two terms in the middle are the x terms that you have to collect or simplify, and then your answer follows this. And this is going to be important when we get to chapter 6, and we have to complete the square, and we have to use the quadratic formula. There's a reason it's called standard form, right? It becomes the standard. So the next one, keep going. X times x squared, x times 5, 5x, x, or 4 times x, 4x, 4 times 5 is 20, and collect. Same thing here, x times x squared, x times 1. I'll just write in the 1x, but you don't have to. X times 7 times x, 7x, 7 times 1, 7. Select the middle terms. So very procedural if you like that better. So when we do factoring trinomials, this is the simplest type because all the numbers are positive. When the numbers are negative, then you have to be careful of integer rules like -4 plus 1 makes -3, that kind of thing. So again, if you struggle with that or that's not your favorite part of math, then just use a calculator. Okay, you don't have to guess. So what you may notice is that when you have standard form, the numbers here, 2 and 3, if you add 2 plus 3, you get 5. If you multiply 2 times 3, you get 6. 4 plus 5, is 9. 4 times 5, 20. 7 plus 1, 8. 7 times 1, 7. So we're going to talk about what numbers add to the b value and multiply to the c value. So again, if multiplication facts or tables, maybe your teacher even called it mad minute or whatever, if that's not your thing, then keep this chart, this multiplication table handy, okay? And those of you that are good at this, it'll be frustrating for people who aren't because it's almost like you can see what the two numbers should be. So we are going to factor trinomials, 1, 2, 3 terms, and we're going to make them two binomials. So we're going to do basically the opposite of FOIL. Okay, so this, if you are into general formulas, this would be like if there were no numbers, so you do first outside, so n times x, inside m times x, and then last mn. So when you collected like terms, you would add these numbers. So the middle number is always adding. The last number is multiplying. So middle or B, you add. Last number or C, you multiply. The same two numbers, so you have to check both. Does it multiply to the C value and add to give you the B value? So I would make a little T chart like this one every single time, okay? Usually it's easier to figure out the multipliers, okay? So we usually do what numbers multiply to C and add to B. So we do C in the first column and then we check the addition. So when you first do this, or if you are not good with multiplication tables, start at the beginning. So we can do 1 and 18. 1 times 18 is 18. What's 18 plus 1? 19. That doesn't work. We can do 2 and 9. What's 2 plus 9? Is what? Yes. I thought you said 1. Sorry. Okay. So that works. Now, you could have done 3 and 6, but that only adds till 9. So it's up to you if you want to go through every multiple, but start at 1 and just do as many as you can. Let's say it's odd. So if this was 21, then you don't have to choose 2 because we are going to do only whole numbers. If you, maybe you can see in your head, oh, it's obviously not 1 and 18 because that's not going to add to 11. So again, once you start to get good at this, you don't have to go through every single multiple. When you are not good at this, I recommend that you do that, okay? So now we have 2 times 9 is 18. 2 plus 9 is 11. So our two factors are 2 and 9. It doesn't matter which one you write first. And you need to write, so we have x here, whatever the letter is, whatever the variable. Usually we try to use x. Sometimes your textbook will use a, p, q, whatever. You have to be careful of the signs, but we want positive 2 times positive 9 gives positive 18. Positive 2 plus positive 9 gives positive 11. So if it's a negative, that is going to impact our answer. And then, remember, you can always check, okay? So you go the opposite. Check by FOIL. X times x squared. X times 9, 9x. 2 times x, 2x. 2 times 9, 18. X squared plus 11x plus 18. That's what that is. If you got the wrong signs or you didn't get the right numbers, then you've chosen the wrong factors. Put your hand up there. Oh. Okay. So over here, we'll continue. We'll do 2 more positive ones, and then we'll look at what happens when you have negative. Oh, no, sorry. We'll do 1 more positive one and then a negative. So again, if you struggle with multiplication tables, we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 8. Make this T-chart, okay? You start at 1 and 12. That adds to 13, not 8. We have 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. So if we do 2 and 6, what do you get? 8. Okay? So you can continue your list. You can stop there. So now we're going to do doesn't matter what order you write them in, those are equivalent answers. Most people will do in their T-chart, they'll start with like 1, 2, 3, so then that's what you put in the first brackets just by default, but it doesn't matter. These are equivalent answers. And then check. X times x squared, x times x is x squared. X times 6, 6x. 2 times x, 2x. 2 times 6, 12. And remember, if it says to check, you'll get marks for checking, okay? Usually it also says check by FOIL or by expanding, so it tells you sort of how to check. But every single factoring question you can check using FOIL. Okay, so now this one has a negative 10 and a positive 9. Okay, so we need to find two numbers that multiply to positive 9 but add to negative 10. So when you have integers, if you do positive times a positive, what's your answer? Positive times negative or negative times positive. The order doesn't matter. What's your answer? If one of them's negative and you're multiplying. Negative. So in order to multiply to a positive number but add to a negative number, that means that both of our numbers have to be negative. So you do need to be careful of the integer rules. The numbers are positive in your trinomial, then that's wonderful. But as soon as there's a negative, then you have to be a little bit careful. Okay, so multiply to 9, we have 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. So when you have a negative number, then again, when you're adding, let's say you did negative 1 and positive 9, you would get positive 8. So again, you have to be careful of what's happening with the signs. There is a little bit of variety. So sometimes in your chart, you could even do like positive 1 and positive 9. That gives positive 10. That's not what we want. Positive 3 and positive 3 gives positive 6. Also not what we want. Negative 1, negative 9. Oh, it gives us negative 10. And negative 9 times negative 9 is positive 9. Okay? So as soon as there's a negative, then things can get a little bit tricky. But don't try to, if you need to make this chart and you need to make it as long as possible and try every integer combination, then do that, especially when you're first starting this, because tomorrow it's going to get more difficult. Okay? So this is, you just basically are checking every single multiple. You can use this to help you. You can just check in your calculator. You do need to be careful if you're using your phone, because a phone is unfriendly and you have to push 1 and then the negative sign. It's after, or it screws it up. So this is the one we want. I'll just highlight it. And we can always check. So especially when you have negative signs, don't just force it to be what the answer should be. If you've got the wrong sign, then you need to go back and check your answer, okay? So especially with the B term where you add them. So we're going to check x times x squared, x times negative 9, negative 9x, negative 1 times x, negative 1x, negative 1 times negative 9 is positive 9. Negative 9 minus 1 or negative 9 plus negative 1, it actually doesn't matter. Negative 10x. So if this you struggled with last year or grade 8 or whatever, then just use a friendly calculator. You do not get extra points for doing mental math, okay? So we're not going to have mad minutes. I'm never going to force you. How fast you do your multiplication tables? No. Okay. So if you are the kind of person who likes a summary slide, okay, that's what this slide is. We're going to go through the 4 different possibilities. Both numbers positive, um, a negative addition but positive multiplying, 2 negatives, positive multiplying, negative, or sorry, positive addition, negative multiplying. And so these are the official summary rules. However, I'm never going to ask you to write it like that. So if you are not the kind of person who likes this, then don't worry about this. Just make the t-chart and always make sure you're adding to the b value, whether it's positive or negative, and you're multiplying to the c value, whether it's positive or negative. Okay? So I'm going to write my answer in the boxes. You guys have boxes? Yes, so I'm going to show my work underneath, okay? So here, we're going to multiply to 18 and add to 9. So again, you might see in your head, oh, it's obviously not going to be 1 and 18, but if you like to have an idea where you go through the same thing every single time, start at 1. 1 and 18 is 19, that doesn't work. 2 and 9 is 11, that doesn't work. 3 times 6 is 18. What's 3 plus 6? 9. So if you have friends in grade 11, they might talk about guess and check. Okay, that's what they're referring to. We're kind of guessing at what the numbers should be and then checking that we're right. Because there's not a lot of room here, I'm not going to do the FOIL, but it doesn't really say to do that. If it does, make sure you do that. You'll get marked for it, okay? So here now we are multiplying to positive 20, but adding to negative 9. So again, if you're multiplying to a positive, but adding to a negative, then that means both numbers have to be negative. But you can go through the factors first. 1 and 20 is never going to give us 9. 2 and 10, maybe 12, maybe 8, never 9. 3 doesn't go into 20, and then 4 and 5. Positive 4 and positive 5 give positive 9. Is that what we want? No. So then negative 4, negative 5. Negative 4 plus negative 5 gives negative 9. Negative 4 times negative 5 gives positive 20. Okay? So that whenever you have a negative sign, that gives you an extra element of make sure you're checking and doing it carefully. Do you have a question? Are you sure? Because maybe somebody else does. Start at 1. So 1, this one? So you're doing 20 divided by 1 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 20 divided by 3 does not give a nice number, so I'm not even going to worry about it. Has to be a whole number. Because I'm trying to show you how you can streamline it. So if you add 20 and 1, are you ever going to get negative 9? No. 2 and 10? No. So you can write the numbers in here. I'm just trying not to clutter it. But you can, for sure. That's it. And multiply to get the end value. that was a good question. Thank you. Okay. So tomorrow when we do 4.4, we're literally going to call one of the methods guess and check. Okay. So sometimes that is your best weapon is your calculator, guessing and checking and figuring out what the numbers are. Hopefully you'll do enough of these questions that even if you hated multiplication tables or you've had 6 months off math or whatever, hopefully you'll be like, oh yeah, 24, 2, 12, 4, 6, 8, 3. You'll start to remember them. So here we have 28. So 1 and 28, that's never going to give us negative 3. 2 and 14, not even close. But then we have 3 doesn't work. 4 and 7. Yes, good. So this is getting us close, right? So then this would be 11, but we want a negative number. That means one of our numbers has to be negative. So that's what this is talking about down here, okay? It says the greater number, so m is greater than n. That's why we're getting a negative number when you add. So if you don't like summary patterns like this, just do the trial and error thing, okay? So if we want to get negative 3, I'm gonna do it the wrong way just to show you. If I do negative 4 and 7, that's what kind of 3? Positive. That's not what we want. So don't just write this down and think, oh, it must be a mistake. No, because if you do it the other way, now what do you get? What's 4 plus negative 7? Negative 3. And that's what we want. Okay? So this one's the opposite of that. Now m is positive because when you add, you get a positive number. But again, if you don't like summary patterns like this, you don't have to worry about it. Just go through trial and error. So we have 1 and 15. That's no good. We have 2 doesn't work. 15 is not even. We have 3 and 5. Okay. So yes, that can get me close. 3 and 5 is 8. Negative 3 and positive 5 is positive 2. Is that what we want? Yes. And you could literally do in your calculator. Negative 15 divided by 1. That's okay. Negative 15 divided by 2 gets me negative 7.5. No decimals. Okay, you can do it that way too. You can just write it down as well. Okay, so down here it says common factor first. This applies to number 12 and number 9, okay? So I'm going to do one more example because it almost looks like you can't do it. But again, especially if Miss Tarantello is your grade 11 teacher, she loves, loves, loves to make you common factor first. So does Mr. Todd in grade 12. Okay, so no matter what kind of questions you do, always check for a common factor first. So these ones, they had no number out front of the X, so that makes your life a little bit easier. We'll do one more. So just put it in you guys have a blank box, right? Put it in there. So this one, it almost looks like you don't have the skills to do it. So this is where you have to common factor first. So when you're doing the homework for this, don't just do the ones at the beginning because there's trickier ones in 9 and 12, okay? And unlike the common factor questions where the common factor could have been anything, these ones, the easiest thing to do is get rid of that number. So try this first. Can all of our terms be divided by 2? Yes. And that would make your life easier. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write it like we did for the common factor ones. If you don't need to show the division step, if you can go right into the taking out the common factor in the brackets, you can do that. Okay, so I'm going to divide by 2. I'm going to divide by the a value. However, you can't just divide it and get rid of it. Don't forget, it has to go out front. Two divided by 2. Now we have x squared. Oh, wonderful. Negative 4 divided by 2. Negative 2x. Negative 16 divided by 2. Negative 8. So you can't ignore the 2 totally. You can't not write it down. But we're going to focus on the trinomial. So we're going to do the same things. 2 numbers that multiply to negative 8 and add to negative 2. We're going to leave that 2 there, but we're not worried about it. Okay? So we're just going to focus on this b value and this c value. So go through. 1, 8. That's not going to help. 2, 4. Oh, now we're getting there, right? But 2 plus 4 positives is 6. That's not what we want. So if we make it negative 2 and 4, negative 2 plus positive 4 is positive 2. Close, but not yet. 2 and negative 4 is negative 2. Remember, the sign matters. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to force that to be positive or negative. That's not how it works. So you have to make sure your signs are right. And you guys know how to handle these. You already foiled these yesterday, right? But if you check by foil, then I would do the foiling first and then multiply by 2, just like you did yesterday. So x times x times negative 4, 2 times x, 2 times negative 4, then distribute 2x, 4x, 2x squared minus 4x minus 16, and that was our original question. Okay? If you are asked to, like, you'll get marks for it. So, yeah. No. Now, if you have extra time, you might want to, because then you can check the answer. But do you have a question? You too? I didn't want to squish, so I didn't rewrite this. That's why. Sorry. Okay, so there are questions from the textbook. Again, the first, like number 4-ish, or I forget where it starts. It wants you to do those ones where it's like find the other factor, and then the questions become more like straight up factoring. And then number 9 and 12 are, you have to common factor first, so you have to do this. You can do this factoring assignment number 1 is common factor. Factoring assignment number 2 is this lesson. And then as the last thing you do, the practice quiz is all of it mixed together. So the solutions for this are online. We're going to do 4.4 in the morning. Then block B, you should be able to ask any questions if you need to. And then after lunch, we're going to have a quiz. Okay? Why are we having a quiz? Because I don't want to wait until the chapter 4 test, which is much bigger on Friday. Let's just a little check here for me. Okay? Yes. 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 28. Marks. No marks. No. Yes. And no graphing, no parabolas or anything, just the fraction.